Kansas State's game against Utah on Tuesday night is huge. I'm talking program-defining huge.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Now part of number one sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account. Use that code LOCKEDONCollege, and it's going to give you $20 off your first purchase. So check out Game Time today. We're going to talk about a Game Time tonight with Kansas State taking on Utah in a matchup that I think is program defining. We're going to talk about that game in just a minute, how I think it is really something that you have to take a deep look at if you lose this basketball game when it comes to the eyes of the future of this program, especially Jerome Tang. We're going to end this show on a bright note, regardless of what happens tonight, because the women's basketball team just had a huge upset. We didn't get a chance to talk about it over the weekend. We're going to talk about that on today's show. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Oklahoma State game that the men's basketball game played on over the weekend as well, because there's a lot of things that really need to get out in the air. And I need to let it out here. We're going to do that all in this show. Hit that subscribe button. Bring you Wildcat coverage like nobody else. Your team every day. Hit that subscribe button. And we're going to bring you that content all the time. We got plenty of football conversation coming down the road as well, with the portal finally closing. We got a lot to talk about. This new roster looks really fun. We'll get to that in a later episode. But today I want to talk about the men's basketball team. And let's just start off with this. On Tuesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, CBS Sports Network, Kansas State takes on Utah. Kansas State has not won a Big 12 game yet this season. They are 0-5. They are the only team in the conference that has not won a Big 12 matchup. They're taking on Utah 9-9, 1-4 in Big 12 play. They're at the bottom of the barrel as well in the Big 12. Here's the difference. Everyone expected Utah to be here. No one expected Kansas State to be like this. Kansas State is underperforming already the low expectations that people had for this program because they haven't made the tournament in so long. Utah expected. They're rebuilding. They fired their coach. It's a whirlwind. I think they're going to be back a lot faster than people expect. But they're expected to be where they're at right now, at the bottom of the Big 12, 9-9, 1-4 in Big 12 play. But not the basement. They're not the basement, because that's where Kansas State sits at 9-9 and 0-5 in Big 12 play. If Kansas State loses this game against Utah and you move to 0-6 in Big 12 play, one, you can already kiss your season goodbye. If you get a loss to Utah, you might already have done that with losses to Arizona State as well, who is also 1-4 in Big 12 play, your only win of the conference against Kansas State. You are fighting for your life, I think, just to even get yourself remotely into play. I mean, let alone, I don't know if we need to even talk about tournament anymore, NCAA tournament. But if you lose this game against Utah, I don't think it matters what the buyout is. I don't think it matters what the type of transfers you were able to bring in. I don't think it matters what kind of coaching staff you were able to bring in this year. With the anticipation, with the momentum, all the things you thought you were getting this past offseason, if you lose against Utah, move to 0-6 in Big 12 play, I think that's a hole you can't get out of. And I think you have to make the decision to move on from Jerome Tang, whether it's at the end of the season when the buyout gets a lot less, or it happens now and you just bite the bullet. I'm not sure. But if you get to 0-6 in Big 12 play, after a team who's only beat TCU in Big 12 play, who's also 1-4 in conference play, you won by 3 points. They're coming off their first Big 12 win. They just won a couple days ago against TCU. They lost to Texas Tech. They lost to BYU. They lost to Colorado. And they lost to Arizona. Utah's played some very good teams inside the conference. And don't get me wrong, so is Kansas State. When you're comparing some of these, though, Kansas State lost to BYU by 10. Utah only lost to BYU by 5. Arizona, it was both kind of blowouts on each side there. This is a game that is completely winnable for Kansas State. In fact, our friends at FanDuel has them favored by 8.5 points tonight. But do you feel any type of optimistic views heading into this game? I don't. You have an All-American on your roster in PJ Haggerty, who is starting to look good. I mean, let's be honest, he's looked good all season. There's been certain excitements in this game, in this season, with certain players stepping up. David Castillo's certainly been a bright spot. Taj Manning has been a bright spot. Some of these European players are starting to step up in exciting ways, the ones you didn't expect, Doreen Buka being one of those players. But they seem like, and this is almost a 3-year problem now, it seems like they just can't put it together over and over again. There's no consistency in the play of Kansas State. And we can go deep. We can dive deep into each of these type of issues of why they're not performing well. And 80% of it, in my opinion, is if this team was a better rebounding team and stopped second chance points, you probably would have a way better record. I mean, this is a team that held Nebraska to a 2-point victory, was it? I mean, they almost beat Nebraska, who, for the record, is sitting on the number 1 seed line for the NCAA tournament, has not lost a basketball game yet this season. Kansas State, it was the closest all season long to beating Nebraska. They won a 1-point game, not even 2-point game. They won 86-85 in that game in late November. That started their first 4-game slump, and it goes right back to what happened last year. Last year in Big 12 play, there was peaks and valleys, back and forth, up and down, up and down. Now, they've turned it from just Big 12 play to the entire season. You started off with a 5-game win streak, then you had a 4-game losing streak. Then you had a 4-game winning streak, and now you're sitting on a 5-game losing streak. If peaks and valleys, if the trends are true, you should win against Utah tonight. You should continue that winning ways as well against Kansas over the weekend into West Virginia, and then you finish it off at home against Iowa State. If the trends continue, I'm not holding my breath. There's a lot of things that have to go right for Kansas State to win a basketball game right now, and it's just not working. I would like to see a lot more from this basketball squad. Jerome Tang talked about it in the postgame after Oklahoma State game. Let's kind of dig into that next. Let's talk about that Oklahoma State game a little bit more in depth, what happened over the weekend, because what a embarrassing and, dare I say, hilarious way to lose a basketball game and continue your losing streak inside Big 12 play before you get to a crucial game against Utah. This should have been a surefire win heading into this one. Now we're talking about, is it possible that they get their first Big 12 win? This is where we're at, folks, already in the middle of January. Let's talk about that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, and we all know this, there's nothing like college basketball season with the energy being right, with being in the middle of it all, the energy, the bands, if they're there as well. Those are moments that live on forever, especially when you get to those March moments. I know that's something we haven't had in quite some time, but they're fun and it's absolutely electric and it brings fans together. But the hardest part is actually getting tickets. And the part that used to be frustrating with long queues, logins and prices jumping at checkout, that's changed. And that's changed because of Game Time. Game Time gives advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college basketball tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I've opened up the Game Time app in the past, and I'm talking about events, college basketball games, college football games, other events, and tickets for as low as $25. It's amazing stuff. My favorite thing is the zone deals. You've heard me talk about it before, but I truly love them, especially if you're going with somebody who doesn't care about sitting on the aisle and just wants to get a good spot at a good value. The zone deal stood out. You pick a section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save even more. Knowing those prices, including all those fees up front, makes the whole process stress-free. And when you're trying to go to an event, worrying about parking, worrying about everything else, having one extra step of stress-free is definitely a good feeling for sure. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen of the day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 podcast network in the world. And if you want even more of Locked On Kansas State, consider going ad-free. Check out the Everydayers Club, where you can get that exclusive Discord access to some of our national shows, and so much more over on the Everydayers Club. Check that out. You can go to lockedonkansasState.supercast.com or check out the show notes below for more information. Digging into more of this Kansas State basketball fiasco over the last couple of weeks, and it's been rough. It's been really rough, especially the way it started. You get some nice wins over Cal's had a pretty decent season other than the last week or so. You almost beat Nebraska, who again has not lost a basketball game yet so far this season. They were unranked at the time. Now they're sitting on a number 1 line in the latest bracketologies. It really all turned around after that Indiana loss on the road, that Bowling Green loss at home, a Seton Hall when they called you soft on the sidelines. And then it just really it went bad. It went really bad. You thought you had some life after beating Creighton on the road, and that was it. That's really all the good things you've had from Kansas State so far this season. And they're yet to find a win in Big 12 play. It feels like, especially when BYU, especially in the Arizona game, it feels like every one of these teams are just plain out flat better than Kansas State inside conference. And yes, we've talked about it on this show. I think the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country. I think you could have maybe made an argument for the SEC last year, but you can call that an outlier. The Big 12 has always been a very good conference, and they're right back at it this year, maybe better than anyone else, or better than any other year this year, with so many good teams sitting towards the top 10, let alone the top 25 in college basketball. It's a gauntlet type of a schedule for Kansas State. We started that off in Big 12 play, playing 2 teams in the top 10 in the Associated Press top 25 poll with BYU and Arizona. They continue to be great in those games in the season so far. But the games that you are expected to compete in or expected to win, Arizona, UCF's having a better year, but I think you could have won that game. And of course, against Oklahoma State, the game that just happened over the weekend, where you lost in hilarious fashion by 1 point. These are the games that keep you alive, potentially battling for a bubble spot in the NCAA tournament. And instead of sneaking out a win here or finding a win there, you lose by 3 to Arizona State on the road, you lose by 9 to UCF, and you lose by 1 to an Oklahoma State team. Oklahoma State over the weekend, PJ Haggerty stepped up, had 21 points. It was his 3rd straight game with 20 or more points in the game. That continues to be a great streak for him. 6 of his last 7 games, he's had at least 20 points, with the exception of the Arizona game where he had 19. So, he continues to do great for this team, but it's just not enough if you're looking at the scoreboard, if you're looking at the record. PJ Haggerty obviously can't do it all. In this Oklahoma State game, you looked at some of the things that went right, some of the things that went wrong. The 3-point ball actually was great. 15 for 34. If you're going back to what Jerome Tang said just a week ago after the Arizona game, they wanted at least 40 3-point attempts. Now, they didn't get that. They got 34, but they shot 15 for 34 in that game against Oklahoma State. 44%, 15 for 34. That'll get it done. You shot 50% from the field overall. You shot much better than Oklahoma State in this entire game. So how did you lose this basketball game? How did that happen? You even out-rebounded Oklahoma State, probably the first time you've out-rebounded a team all season long, especially in Big 12 play. Turnovers. This goes right back to what I was saying earlier in the earlier segment. This team just can't find a way to play a full, clean 2 halves of basketball. It's either they're really great in the first 4 minutes, which hardly happens. They usually struggle mightily in the first 4 minutes, 90% of the time over the last 2 years. We've talked about the first 4 minutes being a crucial piece for Kansas State over and over again. They usually do really well, or they struggle in that first 4 minutes, and then the complete opposite happens. Or going back to non-conference, one of the highlights of the season, they were electric in the first half against Cal. The second half, they forgot to come out of the locker room and almost lost the basketball game. There hasn't been a game in a very long time, maybe one game last year. The Iowa State game is one maybe I can point at where you can say they played all 40 minutes of basketball. Haven't seen that yet this year. Haven't. They might have been close against this Oklahoma State team, but they fell down the line towards the end of this basketball game. And they struggled in the first half a little bit. They started to play a little bit more efficient in the second, but then they made some boneheaded decisions towards the end of the game, fouling a 3-point shot to get them to the line to take the lead. You make a bad shot on a buzzer beater at PJ Haggerty with 2 seconds left after a timeout when you're only down by 1. You could have made a better play than that. And it just, overall, there's just better moments that are just not happening for this team. And I think that's the most frustrating part. I'm coming at you today, and I'm definitely doing a lot of frustrating and venting on this podcast, on this episode, because I'm preparing myself for what is potentially going to happen tonight. I am preparing myself for potentially talking about this Kansas State team being 0-6 and then coming on this show and saying, how can you move on with a coach like Jerome Tang after losing to teams like Arizona State and Utah that are expected to be at the bottom of the conference, and you're not doing it? That's my expectation. I'm hoping that they can prove me wrong tonight. And Jerome Tang even said this in his post game, which I thought was kind of funny. He said that if you're not part of how do we improve, we don't want you on that bandwagon. That was one of the things he brought up in his post game after Oklahoma State. Look, if the only way that you want to talk about is how you improve is someone not criticizing you, well, then you're already on the wrong side of history anyways. There's no need to be a bandwagoner when you are trying to just get yourself to a winning basketball program. You don't need bandwagons. You need people telling you how it is and stepping up and having that type of reflection moments. And right now, that's not happening with this program. There's a couple other things that Jerome Tang talked about after this game. Some things that, it sounds like it's just being recycled over and over again. He referenced again his time with Baylor back in 2018. He said something about when you work with people of character, there's always hope, and hope never fails. He also talked about a few games ago that desperate teams win basketball games. I don't know about you folks, but if I'm sitting at 0-5 in Big 12 play, maybe it's his contract. Maybe it's the fact he doesn't feel desperate because he feels safe, because that buyout looks mighty tasty. I don't know. But this team should be playing desperate. A loss to Utah, there is no chance this team makes the NCAA tournament unless they win out and go what? It's insane run. And even if that happens, I think you might still be out because these are some big losses, some bad losses. It's unfortunate that I have to come to you as a negative type of look on this show. Last time we kind of talked in a negative light about this, we were talking about it after BYU, after Arizona. There was a couple comments in the YouTube, and I hope you guys comment on this one as well. Let me know your thoughts about the basketball team right now. And some people would comment and say, relax, we just played the number 1 team in the country, the top 10 team in the country. We're going to be fine. And I was trying to be optimistic about that. But then we lost these games. And now we're heading into this game against Utah, favored by 8.5. Is it a doomsday scenario? I guess we'll find out. There's a lot of stuff to really anticipate for the game on Tuesday night. We'll have you covered when that one goes final, hopefully in a more positive light. Let's shift it, though. Let's talk a more positive light, because the women's basketball team, although their record isn't maybe amazing, it isn't on the Sweet 16 trajectory that it was last year. The third youngest team in college basketball just beat one of the best teams in the country inside their own conference, and you're getting a lot of hope for the future of that program. Let's talk about that next to round out this show right here on Locked On Kansas State. Welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, and thank you for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen of the day. Men's basketball, it's one thing, right? It's frustrating. There's no doubt about that. But on the other side of it, the women's basketball team, they moved over 500 for I think one of the first times of the season, at least for a very long time. It's been a minute since they've been bouncing back and forth. But they go 3-3 in Big 12 play after upsetting the Texas Tech Lady Raiders, moving them to 19-1, moving them to 6-1 in Big 12 play, upsetting them at home 65-59 over the weekend. We didn't get a chance to talk about this, so we're talking about it now because it deserves its credit. Kansas State women's basketball is so exciting. And it's exciting in a different way. It's not one of those juggernauts where you're like, look, these teams are going to be unbeatable. This is a team that is going to run the table. They're going to be better than that Sweet 16 run team last year. It's none of that. It's look at how great this team can be if they continue to build over and over again. And this is a team that is poised to make that deep run, to be that juggernaut next year if they continue to be on this run. Now, I'm not saying they can't go on a Cinderella run this year. I'm not saying that because they've already won against some pretty exciting teams. This isn't the first time they've beat a ranked opponent this season. This is obviously a big one because it comes in conference. But remember, a few weeks ago, about a month ago, they beat Ole Miss, who was ranked 13th at the time as well. So this is another big win. Texas Tech was ranked 17th in the country after this win. I think you could have ranked them a little higher as well. They came into this game 19-0. Kansas State hands them their first loss of the season, and Kansas State was great in this basketball game. They were great in this basketball game. Taryn Sides finally gets some type of better shooting. She's struggled the last couple games, shooting less than 20% from the field. She steps up. She goes 3 for 7 from the 3-point line. She gets 11 points in this game. 4 players with double-digit points. Tess Heal has been a dog over the last couple games. She's really stepped up and turned into be the leader of this squad, the veteran, really one of the only upperclassmen on this entire roster, and she's taking that to heart, and it looks so good on the basketball court. And then you get other true freshmen like Gina Garcia, who's already had some great moments in her early collegiate career. And she stepped up 11 points, 5 for 6 from the field as well. 9 for 11 from the free throw. They're 82% from the charity strike. I'd love to see them get there more. I think that's my only complaint with this team right now is I'd like to get them to the free throw line more. But when they're doing everything else right, that's a really small thing to nitpick. They shot almost 50% from threes. And then maybe you want to have them take the Jerome Tang approach and have them shoot more threes. They're only 8 for 17, only taking 17 threes in this one, but shooting 47%. But overall, man, 65-59, taking the win here and move them to 3-3 in Big 12 play. That puts them right in the middle of the Big 12 standings right now, which is great because that is a good spot to be as they continue to rise up that ladder. They have a tough game on Wednesday night at home against Houston. If you remember just a few games ago, they played on the road against Houston. They won 71-62, but that fourth quarter got crazy. There was a lot of ejections. Janessa Cotton was ejected. 3 Houston players, actually, I believe it was 4 Houston players were ejected from that basketball game. There's going to be some bad blood in that one, maybe from the jump. So it'll be definitely one you have to pay attention to. That one comes at 6:30 Central Time on Wednesday night, ESPN+. I love when the men's play one day, the women's play the other. I can't stand it when they play on the same day. I like when we get multiple, alternating days so we can dive into these ones more on this one. That's exactly what we're going to do after that Houston game. And then, of course, they play Kansas this weekend as well. That one's actually in Lawrence, though, so should be a fun matchup. I think this is a team that if they continue to do it, because right now it's a teetering back and forth. Ever since that win against Ole Miss, the 13th ranked team in the country, they've gone back and forth with their wins and losses. They won that game against Ole Miss. They lost against San Diego State. The next game they won against Creighton. The next game they lost to TCU. And they beat Cincinnati, lost to West Virginia, beat Houston, lost to Utah, and then won the Texas Tech. So a great way on Wednesday night, end that trend. Get back-to-back wins. It'll be the first back-to-back win since you opened the season 3-0. Haven't had a back-to-back win since your first 3 games of the season against Omaha, SMU, and Lamar. So that would be great if Jeff Mittie could get his crew rolling, get him on back-to-back wins, get him ready for a Sunflower Showdown in Lawrence on Fox Sports 1 later on this weekend. It's exactly what we're looking for to get this team on the right path. I would love to see this team find them way to sneak into the tournament. And I think they can. They got to have a couple more marquee wins and just continue to battle inside the Big 12 conference. But when you look at some of the ways they've played this year and the way that they're starting to shape up, we talked about it earlier this offseason when we kind of previewed the team as a whole and we kind of tried to set the expectations where we said, look, this isn't a Sweet 16 team. This team could be really good, but you have to have patience. I think we're starting to see the patience starting to blossom here. We're starting to see this team with all these freshmen, all these young players starting to find their grooves, their identities. Jordan Spicer really stepping up as of late. Her defense has been incredible lately. Gina Garcia, we've already mentioned. Tess Heal, we've already mentioned. Brandy Harold has been really good as well. There's been a great amount of talent on this team that is starting to gel and find their identities. at what I would say is the right time. You survived non-conference play, and right now you're staying in it in Big 12 play, and a big win against Texas Tech. That's a huge, huge win for your resume. If you can continue to do that, and the Big 12 is just as tough in women's basketball as it is men's basketball, if you can find yourself maybe 2 or 3 games above 500 inside a conference play, you're right in March. You're right in the tourney, especially if you have a good Big 12 tournament, which is something that Jeff Mittie has done well in the past. A lot more to talk about over the week here on Locked On Kansas State. We're going to probably give you a recap right away when the men's game finishes against Utah on Tuesday night. And of course, we got a lot of football to cover as well. A couple fun portal editions late, a couple things that I want to go over, and then we want to do deep dives on them. We got a fun offseason to talk about with college football. We're going to make sure you are covered every single day right here on Locked On Kansas State, and probably some fun crossovers as well in the near future. Probably get one with Cody Stovall of Oklahoma State, because, man, we've had a lot of Oklahoma State transfers, and we got to get his insight on that one as well. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Kansas State. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you back here next time, right here on Locked On Kansas State.